What's up, my beautiful family? It's your girl, Dr. Shauna, and here we are again with another Ask Dr. Shauna segment. I have her email that came from somebody that we're just going to call Miss Confused, and she wants me to respond. And before I get started with this email, I just want to thank every last one of you guys for entrusting me with your deepest, darkest secrets and for sending me all your correspondence in order for me to provide feedback that will not only help you, but will help someone else. Anyone who is interested in getting in contact with me so I can respond to your email request, just go ahead and send me an email to Ask Dr. Shauna, that is DRSHONNA, askdrshauna@gmail.com. Now let's get ready. I am going to start by reading just a small segment verbatim from this writer's email, and then I'm going to just highlight everything else. So she says, I am reaching out to you about my relationship with my husband. We have a wonderful, loving, supportive relationship for the most part. And we are a sign of hope for others to be able to find and have a loving friendship and relationship, whether intimate or not. She goes on to describe some other things about her relationship or her marriage that really raised yellow and red flags for me. Because how do you start an email that says we have a loving, wonderful relationship and we are a beacon of hope for other people in order for them to have a loving relationship and friendship, whether they're intimate or not? But then you go on to describe in the following paragraphs issues of your relationship that communicate levels of toxicity, which we all know is not healthy. So let me share with you guys what Mrs. Confused said. She says that her husband blames her a lot in the relationship. She described him as being perfect, meaning we cannot find any fault with him. And I gather she's being a little bit sarcastic with that remark. She described him as triggering and said that he becomes upset whenever she challenges him. She said that his hypocrisy is causing stress for her in her life, which again is a sign of unhealthiness. She says, I have overheard him tear me down and praise me at the same time and in front of other people. She says her relationship and her love is a convenience for him. He takes it in at his own convenience. She mentioned in her email that her husband has stated that she herself is not a good partner. So she expressed feeling that her husband wants a quiet, subservient woman, somebody who does not have a voice and will allow him to do whatever he wants, whenever he wants, and however he wants to do it. She says that I am showing up as somewhat that person, but that is not who I am. Let me stop right there. First, I want to start by saying this, and I'm going to try to keep this really short to the best of my ability, but I'm going to say this. I, myself, am often wary of people who describe their relationship as a beacon of hope for other people, but they're not transparent, they're not authentic, and they don't keep it real. I, myself, have a problem with that. There are plenty of times I have couples that come into my office and they will swear up and down that their relationship is perfect. They're just having some communication problems. And then when I peel back the layer and I start to uncover all the emotional wounding that has happened in the relationship, I realize that these people are not being authentic with themselves. They're not being honest about the nature of their relationship. They're not being honest about the things in their relationship that is toxic and unhealthy. They're not being honest about how they're showing up in their relationship, but they're quick to point out how their partner is showing up in their relationship. Let me say this to you and everyone else who is experiencing the same thing that you are experiencing, Miss Confused. The first thing you have to do is be authentic with yourself. Be real with yourself, if no one else. We have to be real. You have described things in your relationship that speak to toxicity. In fact, I think you described your relationship as toxic. And as we all know, toxic relationships are not healthy. They're not healthy for your mental health. They're not healthy for the children, and they're not healthy for your partner. It is not a healthy environment whatsoever. But for some reason, we allow the experiences or the spurts of happiness, the spurts of good time, to have us to believe that our relationship is healthy. It is not. For your husband, whether this is true or not, we're only going on your narrative. I would love to speak to your husband, but we're only going on your narrative. For you to say you overheard your husband tear you down and praise you at the same time in front of other people, it already lets me know that there is something off in your relationship. There is some type of disconnection where your husband cannot have that conversation with you in private without bringing third parties into the relationship. When your husband goes back and expresses his frustration about his relationship to everybody else, but not to you, is a problem. But in the same breath, you communicated that your husband has described you to you that you're not a good partner. See, these are things that cannot be overlooked. We can't chuck them up just to say, well, you know what? He just wants to have his way. He wants a wife that is subservient, a wife that has no voice. I'm not that person. Although I have been like this too long in my relationship, that's not who I am. Let me tell you something, Miss Confused. I don't know what is going on in your relationship. I don't know. I can't call it. I'm not telling you to leave your relationship. But what I am saying is, in order for you and your husband to truly work on this relationship and get to a place where the relationship is no longer toxic, not for you, not for him, not for the children, no longer toxic, you got to be open and honest with yourself first. You have to be transparent and authentic with yourself first. How are you showing up in a relationship? I hear everything your husband is doing and what he is not doing, but what I do not hear is how you are showing up. What are the toxic things that you are bringing into the relationship? And that's why I say too often we are disillusioned about our relationships and who we are. That is why that paragraph started off as we have a loving, wonderful relationship for the most part. No, let's not be disillusional. What is happening in this relationship that has not been properly tended to, that is causing toxicity to occur in the relationship? Let me give you an example that I'm out of here. I'm going to liken it to a wound. When we get a wound on our skin, sometimes we try to fix our wound by ourselves because we are unaware how deep that wound truly is. Instead of going for help in order for us to heal properly, we start to treat it ourselves. But what happens when that wound is too deep? When it's too deep, it's not a surface wound. What happens is what we're treating it with is not working. In fact, it is causing the wound to fester and become infected. And we're disillusioned by this because we constantly tell ourselves that it's getting better. We just keep changing the bandages and putting new ones on, adding some more Neosporin antibiotic, and thinking eventually it's going to get better. And because of our stubbornness, we don't go seek medical help because we think we got it all together because we are assuming that the wound is on the surface. But let me tell you something about those wounds that do not heal properly. Let me tell you something about those wounds that become infected, right? And they fester with infection because it has not been properly treated. Sometimes those wounds need sutures. They need stitches because it's actually deeper than what meets the eye. Sometimes there's something else going in around the wound or underneath the wound that the eye cannot see. And the methods that we are applying is not working. It is the same thing with relationships. We're constantly trying to treat relationships on our own, not realizing that it is much deeper. The wound is much deeper than what we are being honest about. And by the time we go to get help, it requires surgery. And if it has gone on too long, you might just lose your arm or your toe or your leg or your life. So what am I saying as I wrap this up and I get out of here? I'm saying that we have to be real about what we are experiencing in relationships. It sounds to me, Miss Confused, that you have learned how to dim your light in your relationship. And now you must be having some forms of resentment for having to dim your light in order for your husband to shine. And then that's where the problem is coming in. For you being upset that you have turned your shine down, turned your flame down, and done things for your husband to help him and be a love and example for other people. You've been biting your tongue, you have been holding back, and the only thing you have been feeling in return is that you are not being appreciated. You are not being respected. You are not being honored. You are not being loved. And again, this is from your narrative. I'm sure if I had Mr. on the other end of this, he will have a totally different experience and a totally different perspective. So I'm going to end this by saying, let's be authentic and transparent in our relationships. In order for our relationships to be healthy, in order for those wounds to heal properly, we have to be willing to show up vulnerable. We have to be willing to show up transparent. We have to be willing to show up honest and authentic with what we are feeling and what we are experiencing. And the mature thing to do in many cases is realize that your partner may not be for you, or you may not be for your partner. And instead of holding on, wounding each other constantly, sometimes we just gotta let things go. Now, Mrs. Confused, I'm not telling you to let your relationship go. I'm speaking for all of us in relationships that we have been holding on and we have been disillusioned about the health of our relationship. We have been making adjustments. We have been accepting things that we ordinarily would not tolerate. We have experienced disrespect and we have let it slide on too long. And now it has festered. It has become infected. This is where we have to either get help or let it go before we lose a limb. So whatever your situation is, Mrs. Confused, I need for you to be authentic, transparent, and honest with yourself first. It is not about pointing out what your partner is doing or what your partner is not doing. It's about pointing out to yourself how you are showing up and what you need and desire from a relationship. When you can get that clear, then we can talk about how you can go about healing your relationship if it's possible. And for everybody else, we have to get ourselves to places where we're no longer holding on to relationships that are no good for us. It doesn't mean that our partners are not good people. It doesn't mean that we are not good people. What it might simply mean is that we have overstayed our welcome in a relationship and now the relationship is no longer healthy. Sometimes we have to perform surgery, and that includes letting it go. Until next time, guys, keep the emails coming at askdrshauna@gmail.com. Peace and blessings to my family. Thank you so much for trusting me with your secrets, and I cannot wait to speak to you next time.